तो आ जाएंगे आप लोग पूछोगे आप रात को 8-9 हो जाएंगे आराम से निकलना आपको
You love Gantt charts?
तो आ जाएंगे आप लोग पूछोगे आपको रात को 8-9 हो जाएंगे आराम से निकलना आपको
You love Gantt charts?
Good evening, sir.
Very good evening.
Sir, Sri Krishna University, Chhatarpur, Honorable Chancellor is also joined with us. I would like to welcome Dr. Prajan Singh Gautam, Chancellor of Sri Krishna University, Chhatarpur, Madhya Pradesh, India.
बहुत धन्यवाद अश्वानी जी for introducing and bringing. Welcome, and we will be in touch after the event as well. And yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Ashwini Kumar Dubey ji, Dr. Ashwini Kumar Dubey, and all scientists, doctors, professors. Basically, I am on the way, and I was late also for joining this meeting, Zoom meeting. But definitely, it was a nice subject based on Ayurveda, what to eat, what to not eat. So once again, I'm going to for next meeting. Once again, to thank you for all. बहुत धन्यवाद.
Namaste everyone and welcome to this webinar series. I think we are about to begin the webinar series. So I would just request one housekeeping note that everyone please switch on their cameras and keep the mics on mute so that we get the most out of the talk that we are here for. So before I introduce our esteemed speaker, I would just like to mention briefly about what GIST is. So Global Indian Scientists and Technocrats Forum, as all of you are already aware of, is a group of people who are mainly from the Indian diaspora, who are very, very interested in doing something for the nation. So all of us do this as a volunteer service out of our love for our nation. There are three verticals that are very active. One of them is Ahar Kranti, of course, which is the source of this webinar today. We will have it on the Ahar Kranti platform, which is a program that was launched last year. It's been a year and a half. It was launched on the day of Varsh Pratipada last year by then Honorable Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan ji. And this initiative of Ahar Kranti is to bring awareness about nutrition for improving long-term health for people in Bharat so that we reduce the burden of chronic diseases and also to provide solutions for the same. The other two verticals that we have that are very active are the education vertical, which is led by Sujata Gokhale. And what the education vertical is doing currently is bringing a wonderful combination of digital self-paced learning courses from subject matter experts. These courses are very unique. They will be offered on a digital platform and universities will be offering these as elective courses. So these are very unique subjects that we are bringing from the educational vertical. That is just one of the initiatives that I'm highlighting here. We also have the agriculture vertical, which is very active in promoting organic farming, use of technology, vertical farming. There are many other things that the agriculture vertical is doing. One of the initiatives that was led by Dr. Rao, who is here among us today, was the cultivation of high protein variety of rice. I think the name is Mukuldhan. So Dr. Rao initiated that, and we had the fortune of actually tasting the first harvest, which was served as payasam in the Indian International Science Festival last year, IISF. So these are the three verticals that are very active. GIST has already signed MOUs with several universities, institutes. So one of them was signed this morning with Thakur Institute of Management Studies in Mumbai, where we will be initiating webinar series to educate the faculty and students about what Ahar Kranti is, about nutrition, and how this should be taken forward to the villages that have been adopted by this institute. This is just one example among several other universities that we have already tied up with. One of them is Karnataka State University, KSRD PRU, Sweri in Pandharpur. So these are some examples. There's also Sri Krishna University, Khajuraho, Ashwini ji is here from that university. So these are some of the initiatives that GIST has been undertaking for the past few years, and it has really caught steam. So we are here for this talk by Professor Rama Jayasundar. Without holding the audience back from this wonderful session, I will just introduce her briefly. She doesn't really need an introduction. She has a very unique set of qualifications. She is head of the Department of NMR at AIIMS, New Delhi. And what is unique about her qualifications is that apart from a PhD in physics, specializing in NMR from the University of Cambridge, she also holds a BA/MS degree, which is extremely unique. She is the only one who has such an amazing background. So what is interesting about her is her focus on health and how to really study Ayurveda in a very goal-oriented manner, where it's shown scientifically how the principles of Ayurveda can be applied to health. So the title of her talk today is Intersecting Perspectives on Health, Diet and Nutrition. And the reason for this is, as we have seen in Ahar Kranti, which is what we focus on, the burden of chronic diseases is very high, not just in Bharat, but globally. This is because although we have the knowledge of nutrition, it is somehow lost when we are actually preparing our meals, when we go about our day-to-day lives. And in order to bring back this focus, in order to reduce our dependency on medicines, because medicines do not actually solve the problem, they do not actually treat many of the chronic diseases, they do not prevent majority of these chronic diseases. There's a need to go back to the roots. And Ayurveda has we have this wonderful heritage that has been ongoing for centuries. So if there's a way of scientifically showing how this works, which is what Ramaji is going to talk about, why we should be looking at Ayurveda from this perspective. So welcome, Ramaji. Without taking much of your time, I would like to invite you to talk about the subject at hand. Thank you so much.
Namaskar, and thank you for that very kind introduction. Let me share my screen. Can you see?
Yes, Ramaji.
Yeah. So namaskar once again, and my thanks to LOG for inviting me to share my thoughts on Ayurveda in the specific context of diet and nutrition. There are definitely two perspectives on these aspects: health and disease management and diet and nutrition. One is defined by reductionism, which is personified by contemporary science, contemporary biology and medicine. The other is defined by holism, which is the hallmark of not only Ayurveda, but the entire spectrum of Indian knowledge systems. Of course, the intersecting point is the shared interest of these two different perspectives on health, how to keep an individual healthy, and how to bring welfare to the society at large. What I'm going to do in the next 30 minutes or so is put these two perspectives, juxtapose these perspectives to understand why they differ, how they differ, where they differ, and what these differences mean for health and disease management, and also for, more importantly, for diet and nutrition. So let us shoot the first question. Source of the differences. What is the source of these differences? I am going to use clinical medicine as a springboard for this discussion. Let us also remember that all medical systems, be it modern medicine or Ayurveda or homeopathy or any other system of medicine, all of them are applied sciences. They are not fundamental sciences. They are in fact founded on basic sciences or fundamental sciences. And what these fundamental sciences, basic sciences provide are concepts, theories, and methodologies to understand the biological system, to elucidate the physiology, to explain health, interpret diseases, and provide techniques for diagnosis and treatment. At a more fundamental level, they provide an understanding of the reality, or in other words, what is called a worldview. Now, when we talk of clinical medicine, the endpoint of all clinical medicine is treatment. And treatment is defined by diagnosis. And diagnosis is defined by how the human system or the biological system is understood. If the biological system is understood in terms of structural entities, cells, molecules, proteins, receptors, and so on, diagnosis will use the same terminologies. It has to. It has to sync with the understanding of the human system. And the treatment will have to target these entities, which is fundamentally defined by how the human system is understood. Now, we may wonder whether it's possible to understand a human system, a biological system, in two different perspectives. After all, the heart will beat the same way, whichever medical stream is trying to understand it, whichever medical stream is trying to manage it. The digestive system will work in the same way. Nothing is going to change. The physiology will be the same. Anatomy is going to be the same. So then, is it possible does it make sense at all to have two different perspectives of the same human system? Well, it is possible because the system is a very complex system. There is more than one way of looking at it. What actually dictates the way that a human system is looked at? It is dictated by how the reality is understood by the contributing basic science. So if we look at the contemporary science, what has been, so this is where this is the source of the differences between the different medical streams. Now, if you look at the modern science or contemporary biology and medicine, the contribution of physics, apart from diagnostic techniques and other technological innovations, it has a very, very fundamental contribution through its perspective on reality and world. It has two different diametrically opposite worldviews, one based on classical physics, the other based on quantum physics. But what the science has adopted to a large extent is the Newtonian worldview or a classical worldview, which says that the world is made of building blocks, and these building blocks can be reduced to smaller ones. So the reality is made of material objects which can be broken down or reduced to smaller ones. It also goes on to say how these behave in a very deterministic way and how physical laws govern them. But what is of interest to us is the second point here, which says that the larger objects can be reduced to smaller ones. Now here the large object is the human system, and you see how it is understood in terms of its components. So in fact, this is reductionism with a focus on structures. So the entire human organism system is understood in the base of its or based on its fundamental components. The fundamental functional unit is cell, but you can go down still further till the level of atom. So we know that anything physical in the world is made up of atoms, atoms make molecules, then you have organelles, cells, tissue, organ system, and the entire organism. So this is a structural hierarchical
I think there is a snag. Let's just give a few minutes. Ramaji, if you are able to hear us, your voice is not coming. Okay. Let me try to reach her and see whether she can. At least should be knowing. Let's see.
has its fundamental sciences. For want of time, I'm not going into the details of that. But suffice to say that it draws from Vedic worldview, which talks about interconnectedness. The Vedic worldview says that nature exists as a continuum. The whole universe is a dynamic web of interconnected and inseparable entities in a dynamic relationship. And we are all part of nature. The humans, the plants, the animals, the microorganisms, everything is part of this nature, which is in a dynamic relationship. Because of this very different, way of, looking at the nature, Ayurveda has conceptualized the human system in a very different way. It looks at the human system as a interconnected system. It talks of 4 different domains: a structural domain, a physiological domain, a psychological domain, and a domain of consciousness. All these domains are intraconnected. So, for example, the structural domain is networked through channels, which are called srotas in Ayurveda. The physiological domain is networked through a set of parameters defined by Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. I will try to explain this in a very, very brief manner later. The psychological domain has its own parameters, and these are intraconnected. The subtle aspect of our existence is connected through levels of awareness. While these 4 domains act like separate modules, intraconnected, you can see that there are also overlapping regions, which means that these domains are all interconnected as well. For example, the structural and physiological domain are connected through parameters defined by and Kapha. The same parameters connect physiological and psychological domain. The psychological parameters connect the psychological domain and the domain of consciousness. And what is very interesting is that the subtlest aspect of our existence, which is defined by levels of awareness, is connected to the most gross aspect of our existence, that is the structural domain, through the first level of awareness. The first level of awareness for any of us is our physical body. And only then, we are aware of the prana and the mind and the information the mind can hold, and the discriminative power of the mind, and so on. The first level of awareness is the physical body, and that is the one which connects the subtlest aspect of our existence with the structural domain. So we are seamlessly mind, body, and soul. And so the source of holism is holistic understanding of reality. So you see how the understanding of reality has two different perspectives, and how these two different perspectives has defined the way the human system has been conceptualized by Ayurveda and by modern biology. So because of this interconnectedness that Ayurveda draws upon from the Vedic worldview, the human system is understood as a seamless, interconnected whole by Ayurveda. Ayurveda says that from the core of our being to the vast expanse of the universe, we exist as one. In fact, Charaka very elegantly says that the whole universe is the expansion of one's consciousness. So these are of course, these are concepts and theories. But when we are talking of handling health and managing disease and managing the diet and nutrition, we need to have a more practical model which can be used for management. So let us see how Ayurveda works at a pragmatic level. So for this, Ayurveda has a first level classification, which is which looks at the system as gross and subtle. The gross aspect of the human system is subclassified into three types. One is structural classification. It's called Dhatu in Sanskrit, the language of Ayurveda. This deals with the physical. Can you see the screen, or has it gone off?
Yes, we can see, Ramaji.
Yeah, okay. So the first aspect, the structural classification, deals with the physical aspect of the human system. The second is functional classification defined by doshas, which are basically Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And this deals with physiological and psychological classification. Implicit in this is the physical aspect as well. There is no physiology without a structural entity. For a function to manifest, there has to be a structural factor. And then there is a system-wise classification defined by what is called Shrotas, which refers to indicates channels. And this deals with physical, physiological, and psychological aspects. And then the subtle aspects deal with levels of awareness, which deals with the psychological and realms of awareness. Now, let me quickly, share some information about this functional classification, because this runs as an undercurrent to the entire Ayurvedic, not only understanding, but how it manages health, disease, and diet and nutrition. So when you say functions, there are many factors which contribute to a function. For example, structure. It is a must for a function to manifest. Then there is biochemistry, then many activities from electrical, magnetic, mental, and to emotional activities. We can even include spiritual activities. All these and many more contribute to function. So a function is a emergent property of many contributing factors. What is interesting here is structure and biochemistry, which are hallmarks of modern biology and medicine, are included in this functional classification. So Ayurveda has identified three functions which it considers as very important for human functioning. These are movement, metabolism, and growth. In the context of Ayurveda, these are called Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. I am going to refer to these as V, P, and K for convenience. So V, P, and K are characterized by biophysical, chemical, physiological, and psychological parameters. So what the Ayurvedic Acharyas have done is they have identified these functions and brought under these three groups factors which impact these functions. So because you see that psychological parameters are also included in this. This VP and K encompass the entire psychophysiological functions. These are examples of some of the functions. So you can see some biophysical parameters which comes under Vata, Pitta and Kapha: dryness, fluidity, adhesivity, size, stiffness, viscosity, weight, elasticity, roughness. And you can see parameters like pH and temperature. Of course, Ayurveda does not use the word pH, but it uses the word acidity. So we can infer that the parameter which defines acidity would be pH. And you can see that I have listed some of the psychological parameters which comes under Vata, Pitta and Kapha. So this VP and K is a broad-based classification which defines psychophysiological functions. These are subdivided into 5 subtypes each. So between these 15 subtypes of VP and K, all psychophysiological functions in the system can be explained. So there are no psychophysiological function which comes outside the purview of this subclassification or these types. So a notable feature of this kind of conceptualization or this model is the absence of hierarchy. So here you can see the growth of a fetus here. So we cannot say that movement comes first, then metabolism, and then growth. All these happen side by side. So which is what I mean by telling that there is no hierarchy. This is in contrast to this model adopted by modern biology and medicine, where there is a clear structural hierarchy. What is interesting is, and what makes Ayurveda work in a very, very practical, pragmatic way, is how these parameters, the connections between these parameters. So for example, if you take the parameter dryness, it affects movement, it affects temperature, it affects fluidity, it affects heaviness, it affects lubrication and roughness. These are just some of the parameters that dryness has an influence on. In fact, we can draw associations between all the parameters defined by Vata, Pitta and Kapha. So this network, so in this network, V1 to V7 represent parameters under Vata, P1 to P7 under Pitta, and K1 to K7 under Kapha. And you can see this picture here on the right upper corner of this slide. This is a picture taken from a book on systems biology. This is a network of proteins. It can be a network of genes as well. And you see the similarity between these two networks. What actually is different between these networks is what these nodes denote. Here the nodes may denote genes or small metabolites or proteins. Here the nodes denote biophysical properties, which are defined by Vata, Pitta and Kapha. So when this network is in balance, it denotes health, and disease is a system perturbation. The job of Ayurvedic Vaidya is to get this system into balance. What has gone out of balance will be brought back to balance by the Ayurvedic Vaidya. Now, let's move from concept to practice. Yes, it all sounds very wonderful, but how do they achieve it in practice? For this, the concept of VPK has been made as a common platform. It's a common platform for all factors which affect or which impact health and disease. Plants, minerals, metals, animals, food, environment, lifestyle activities, all these they have an impact on health, and all of them are understood in terms of VPK. Clinical symptoms, which are very important for diagnosis, that's also understood in terms of VPK. And diagnosis based on VPK and the treatment strategies are in sync with the parameters used as diagnostic metrics. So VPK provides the theoretical framework for all the psychosomatic life processes. So the management is very comprehensive. There are physical interventions in the form of medicine, in the form of procedures called panchakarma, in the form of diet. And there are non-pharmacological interventions such as yoga and meditation and lifestyle activities. So you see how the management, be it health, be it disease, be it diet and nutrition, it is very comprehensive. It includes as many factors, as many parameters as possible. So this picture actually brings out the difference between the two systems, between the reductionistic viewpoint and the holistic viewpoint. So this is a picture of a forest, and you can see that the landscape can be captured in its entirety from this height. This is a picture of a microscopic structure of one of the leaf from one of the tree here. From this standpoint, you cannot get the entire picture, and from this viewpoint, you cannot get the nuanced information. So these are two different ways of looking at the same system. So when different heights are used to view something, you have different views, and this leads to different understanding, and this leads to different terminologies. So this is the reason why the terminologies and metrics used in Ayurveda are very, very different to those used in modern medicine. So why do the perspectives, two perspectives differ? It differs fundamentally because of the fundamental difference in the basic outlook of reality. And this has led to two different ways of conceptualizing the human system. One talks about functional holism, the other talks about structural reductionism. Do these differences matter? Yes, they do matter. And let me explain how it matters in the specific context of diet and nutrition. Ayurveda says that human being is an annamaya. Anna means food, maya means personification. So we are personification of what we eat. This is a categorical statement by Ayurveda. It reiterates this statement by telling we are what we are by what we eat. The different perspectives have brought about different nutritional metrics. The nutritional metric in modern dietetics and nutrition is generally calorie. All the structural entities of food contains carbohydrates, vitamins and minerals, fats, all these proteins, all these are understood in terms of the calories it would provide to the human. Now, Ayurveda has different set of metrics. It talks about taste. It talks about the thermogenic property. It talks about the digestibility of food. It talks about how the food preparation has an impact on the absorption or on the nutritional value. It talks about the digestive power of the individual who is taking the food. Again, a very different standpoint on balanced diet. Instead of telling that it has to have these structural entities of carbohydrates and proteins and vitamins and minerals and fats in this proportion, Ayurveda simply says that the food should have all the 6 tastes, which is sweet, sour, saline, pungent, bitter, and astringent. So, which is why it proposes a thali type of food where there is place for all the 6 tastes. We can always, extrapolate these tastes to its structural entities. For example, something with a sweet taste is will have carbohydrates and sugar. So we can do these extrapolations. But as far as Ayurveda is concerned, it says that whatever we eat should have all the 6 tastes. And it's a multimodal delivery that Ayurveda has adopted. So there are general cooking rules. There are regional cuisine based on the climatic and weather conditions of different regions. There are family traditions because families also had their own vocation. So based on the kind of work a family was involved in, Their cuisine also was customized according to that. There is a saying that festivals never end in India. It's very true. But what we also know is there are different cuisine. There are different goodies that are prepared during different festivals. And all these are in tune with the seasonal changes and what kind of changes should be incorporated in diet and cuisine during these seasons. Then there are age-dependent cuisine, what an old person should eat, what a young person should eat, what somebody in the most productive age of their life should eat, and so on. There are phenotype-dependent cuisine, prakriti. What is good for one may not work, may not be good for the other. So food, what one eats is customized based on one's prakriti. Occupation-dependent cuisine, seasonal cuisine, and food designing for therapeutic nutrition. What we should understand and bear in mind is that food is not for the palate, it is a medicine. Food is a medicine in Ayurveda, but what our clever ancestors have done is that they have made it very tasty without compromising the therapeutic aspect of food. Food preparation in the Indian cuisine provides therapeutic nutrition. All the ingredients have medicinal property. There is no ingredient which does not have a medicinal property. And all these are and more are described and documented in Ayurvedic texts. Food designing, which is a very big topic these days, is a very important aspect of Indian cuisine. And the traditional Indian recipes incorporate antidotes in their preparations. So all ingredients have medicinal property, but they also, anything in excess is going to have side effects. And these side effects are known prior and they are handled by having ingredients which act as antidote. These are not only in the preparation of the recipes, but also even in the usual things that we take, like fruits, what combinations can be taken. So for example, jackfruit is always advised to be taken with honey.
Again, there is a interruption in her voice. Okay. Yeah. We think technology is in our control, but sometimes, right when we need, there will be some glitches. But I'm sure you are all enjoying the view that we have in front of us, jackfruit and honey and the combination. My mouth is watering. I believe many of yours as well. So until the voice comes back, Rashmiji, maybe you can quickly mention about the part 2 of the presentation.
Yes, as interesting as this talk is, we are also looking forward to the next talk, which will be held in August, which will focus on the traditional thalis. So Ramaji is here. She will continue with her talk.
Hello?
Yes, you are coming through. Please go ahead.
No, my talk is over.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
okay.
I was given 30 minutes. I think I have taken 30 minutes.
Okay, wonderful. Interesting. You ended up with the slide which made my mouth watering. I like both honey as well as jackfruit, and the combination is just shy of reaching the heaven. Okay.
I agree with you. I also like that. Absolutely love that combination.
So there's a question, I think. Comment from Srinivas Rauji. Rashmiji, you can take from the chat the questions or comments. Water is the Ayurveda recommendation about water for better health. You want to share some thoughts?
Probably what, yes.
Water. Okay. Ayurveda, it says nothing should be used in excess, and this this is true for the consumption of water as well. The best way to take water is, I mean, if our system requires water, it gives cues, and then we can take water. And when we take our food, the best way to take water is in between the morsels. If one wants to lose weight, then they can take water. Ayurveda says you can take it before you take the food. And if one wants to gain weight, they can take it after the food. But for the normal way of taking water is, between the morsels of food.
Great.
It definitely does not advise, gallons of water to be drunk.
Okay, so water is very interesting. I had heard in one of the conversation from a nutritionist that is we are made of 5 Pancha Mahabhutas, and water is one amongst them. What it means is you covered, should not drink too much of water, should not drink less of water. But today, the scientists or the dietitians or the nutritionists say you have to drink 2 liters of water or 2.5 liters of water. On the other hand, the Ayurveda dietitian mentioned that you drink water as you mentioned before or after, and because of your diet, if body wants water, it will ask you, it will make you feel thirsty, and then just drink some water. So your comments on this approach?
See, the current thought process, even by scientists and doctors, is that too much of water can cause hydrotoxicity. So it's not that, you take water and then it comes out. That also has to be digested. It has to go through the system. The kidneys have to work. So too much of water can lead to kidney damage. This is the current, thought on this by the scientists. This is not my subject expertise, so let me not comment more on this. But as far as Ayurveda is concerned, it's very, very clear. It says too much of anything is bad, and if your system requires water, it will give a cue, you drink. And it also depends upon the climatic conditions. During summer, you do require more water, you feel like taking more water. But in winter, forcing water on oneself, would be a great idea.
So there are quite a few questions in the chat box here. There's one from Dr. Aparna Lalinkar, which is, has there been any experimental research done on the effectiveness of thali-based diet in Ayurveda?
Just like, it's very difficult to do research, experimental research, even for the modern dietetics and nutrition. It's not so easy because there are so many factors that are involved that need to be controlled, which is very, very difficult. But what Ayurveda can tell you is it can give its complete scientific rationale from an Ayurvedic perspective, of course, as to the utility of thali. So why this is important, and what are the advantages of these? So that scientific explanation is pretty much available in Ayurveda. But as far as research is concerned, I don't think any research has been done. And I would presume that it would be very, very tricky to do it because, research is generally done comfortable with single molecules or when you break down the system, right? So in a complex, food diet is going to be very difficult. So I feel that the more intelligent thing would be to have faith in the cuisine and practices that has been followed for years together, and the scientific explanation that Ayurveda gives. And these are something that we continue to use as well. So this is another way of looking at it. But of course, if one wants to do research, they are welcome to do, but please don't ask the Ayurvedic doctors to do this research.
Right. I mean, my question was precisely with who has scientific backgrounds in collaboration with Ayurvedic doctors. Both could go ahead with, but it is difficult. I know it is difficult, and as you said, I myself have more. I always use Ayurveda and have faith. I mean, faith is the basic factor in getting cured in Ayurveda, and following the what is pathya and kupathya, apathya, all that, what is prescribed by the Vaidya, that is most important. I know. Yeah. As I said, I myself have more. I always use Ayurveda and have faith. I mean, faith is a basic factor in.
Even without faith, it will work because it's a medical system. It's not a placebo effect. Yes, it's good to have faith. It will work even on people who do not believe it. Right. Allopathy does, right? Whether the person believes it or not, the medicines work. So Ayurveda is no different. So yes, it is. So even in allopathic system, if you have faith in the doctor, if you have faith in the medicine, it works better. So the same is
it was better. Yes.
Yeah. But this concept of thali is very specific to India. So this is not something that can be adopted by so easily by the Westerners, the Western countries. Their concept of diet, not only their concept, what they eat is very, very different, and how the food is prepared is also very different. So this concept of thali is very specific to India, and whether Indians will have this thali only after research, that's a question that I would like to pose. Or even without research, will they continue to use it?
I think let us focus on the questions. Maybe if the time permits later, we can engage in expressing our points of view. So Rashmiji, back to you for questions.
Yes. So Varshaji here has 3 questions. So I'll take ask the first one. What would you advise in general for metabolic syndrome? Is the first question. And also for a healthy gut, would you say curds or directly a probiotic culture? I think they are very, very specific.
So what is the second question?
What would be healthier to eat for a healthy gut, directly curds or a probiotic culture, yogurt or probiotic?
See, Ayurveda is a very personalized system of medicine. So there is no one general recipe or prescription for these diseases. So what has caused the metabolic syndrome, and so what kind of prakriti the patient has, what kind of manasika prakriti the patient has, in which season the disease has manifested, what is the age of the patient, all these are factors which will decide the prescription. So it is not possible to say that, these are the medicines which can be used in metabolic syndrome. So the second is the gut health. The gut health is something that is only very recently there's a lot of focus on this. Ayurveda has always focused on this. Whether it is the medicines or whether it is the food, digestion of these is very, very important. And as I showed in one of my slides, one of the nutrition metrics is the digestive capacity of the person. And the digestive health is very, very important in Ayurveda. And again, depends upon the prakriti of the patient, the person, and where they live, and many other factors. And the healthy food for the gut is already incorporated in our traditional cuisine. So Ayurveda doesn't talk separately about gut health. It is part and parcel of diet and nutrition in Ayurveda. So in fact, there are diseases where the gut health is first improved and only then medicines are given. So as far as curd is concerned, well, Ayurveda takes a very different viewpoint. It does not consider curd to be a very healthy food. In fact, it bans it. It says, 365 days of the year, it is not to be taken in the night. And the only season which Ayurveda recommends for taking curd is the winter season, and that too during the daytime. And that not as a standalone, but as a lassi or as a raita mixed with something else. So its viewpoints on curd is very, very different compared to the modern, idea of the probiotics in curd.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'll go to the next question here from Dr. Rao. There are many rivers in India. Is there a mention in Ayurveda about which one is better?
Rivers.
Yes.
Rivers.
Yes.
Okay. There is offhand, I don't remember, but of course, Ayurveda talks about different kinds of water. It talks about 8 different kinds of jala, and it associates it with rivers. The properties of water in rivers flowing from east to west are different from the from those of rivers flowing from west to east or north to south. It does mention about 1 or 2 rivers, but I should admit that I don't remember the exact details. But it talks extensively about properties of water, and based on what is called rasa and guna, and how to which vessels to store water, and what will be the best metal to store water, and how long it can be stored for. It's a treasure house of information on what we do on a day-to-day basis. How to drink water, how to collect water, which water should be boiled, which need not be boiled, how to purify water. And similarly on milk as well. It talks about different kinds of milk, that properties, and so on.
Thank you so much. So there's another question related to water. Is drinking water necessary just after meals? I think you have already answered that. Another question from Manohar ji is there any instrument to define Vata, Kapha and Pitta, the Prakrutis?
As of now, there is no instrument as such. And there are, in fact, some of my research deals with that, how to measure these. But the answer is that as of now, there are no instruments to measure, but these are all tangible parameters that Ayurveda talks about, especially these biophysical properties. And these are all properties, biophysical properties are being talked about in modern medicine as well. Adhesivity, cell adhesivity, viscosity of the blood, all these are properties that modern medicine also talks about. So these are tangible parameters which in theory can be measured.
Thank you so much. There's a question from Dr. Shikha Srivastava about the interconnectedness. I mean, we know that these prakritis are interconnected, but what if a person is suffering from 2, like Vata dosha and Kapha dosha? What kind of solution does Ayurveda offer? So she has this question.
So, in one of my slides, I showed about how the platform of the theory of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha are used for all factors which impact health. And clinical symptoms are also included in these because they are used for as diagnostic metrics. So there are symptoms which are classified under Vata, some under Pitta, and some under Kapha. So, for example, let's say that a person has a headache. If the headache, is it comes and goes. It's not a steady headache, and so it comes under the category of Vata. If the patient has a pulsating headache, then it comes under Pitta. If the patient has a very, the head feels very heavy, there is heaviness and then there is pain associated with it, it comes under Kapha. Let's take another example, common cold. If the nasal discharge is very watery, then it's a Vata kind of cold. If the nasal discharge comes out with a burning sensation and it's slightly yellow in color, it's Pitta involved. And if the nasal discharge is white, mucus, and thick, then it is a Kapha defined cold. Another example, loose motion. If the motion is very, very watery, then it's Vata. Then if it is moderately watery, then it's Pitta related. If the stools are it comes out in large quantity and heavy, then it's Kapha. So there are no clinical symptoms which comes outside the purview of this classification. It could be COVID, it could be multiple sclerosis, it could be rheumatoid arthritis. All the symptoms comes under the classification of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So a disease can have either a single symptom or a combination of two or three. So the major difference between Ayurveda and the modern medicine is that when a patient presents with the symptoms are addressed in modern medicine. So which is why it's called a symptomatic treatment. If there is pain, then there is a painkiller which is given. If there is fever, then antipyretics are given. If there is inflammation, anti-inflammatory drugs are given. So these directly deal with the symptoms. Now, the difference in Ayurveda is from the symptoms, see, after all, the patient will present the same symptoms to both the Ayurvedic doctor and the allopathic doctor. In Ayurveda, from the symptoms, they go to the root cause of the problem, because the symptoms are classified under Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And I already mentioned that the disease is a system perturbation of this Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So from the symptoms, they go to the root cause of the problem, and they can even go further back, identifying the diet and lifestyle activities which have caused this imbalance. Once this diagnosis is made, treatment becomes very easy, because the medicines are also classified under Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. See, that's why it's very, very convenient to have the same language and parameters for all factors which are involved in management. So this is how Ayurvedic Vaidyas diagnose and treat the patients. All these information have been after years of observation and research that has happened over thousands of years. We are talking of a system which has seen thousands of years of it has worked for thousands of years, and how many observations would have been made, how many mistakes would have been made, and how they would have drawn lessons from these mistakes, and how they have documented this. So what the modern medicine is going through now, the process of research, Ayurveda has gone through it. See, they may not have had the the sophisticated instruments that we have now, but they had something much higher than what we have. That is, they had a very, very rational and observant mind and thinking, and they put it to as best use as possible to document their observations. And so these are information which are documented, and these are information which are used by Ayurvedic doctors for diagnosis and treatment.
Thank you so much, Ramaji. There's a question from Sugandha ji about the hot and cold foods in Ayurveda, not temperature wise, but the heat and cooling foods. About what are these foods?
So this is again one of the nutritional metrics. I said thermogenic properties. This is what the thermogenic property would mean. Whether something is endothermic or exothermic, whether something induces heat, or whether it absorbs heat and bringing a coldness to the person who takes the food. So the food is classified as what is called Ushnavirya and Shitavirya, that is basically an exothermic food. And this again is used according to the season. So for example, during winter, exothermic food which gives heat to the system is used. And during summer, endothermic foods are used. Again, this is tuned to the prakriti of the person. A person with a pitta dominant prakriti, where there is a basal, a higher level of metabolic rate, endothermic food is generally advised, especially in summer and the hot seasons. So Ayurveda uses this concept extensively, not only to manage health but also while treating diseases.
Thank you so much. So there's a question from Dr. Mamta Mishra about the incompatible foods and antidotes that are used. So she would like to know more about these.
Incompatible foods are called Viruddha Aharas in Ayurveda. And one typical example is the milk and fruit. What we consume in very large quantities these days, the milkshake, the pineapple milkshake, apple milkshake, banana milkshake, all these are, we are grandly inviting problems for ourselves. So I wonder what kind of research has been done to get these combinations, right? So people just come up with combinations, and I suppose these smoothies are also part and parcel of the whole thing, right? I mean, I have never understood what exactly these smoothies are, but I presume that it must be something like this. So milk and salt is one incompatible combination. Milk and especially sour fruit, sweet and sour taste, milk and radish, milk and fish. And there are lots of information on incompatible combinations for non-vegetarian food. They even talk about peacock meat. They talk about fish and a whole lot of non-vegetarian food. And what oil is incompatible. So in which oil you should not cook. I don't remember the specific details, but I do remember that something cannot be cooked in mustard oil. Something should not be cooked in coconut oil and things like that. Yes, so these are some of the Viruddha Aharas, and also, the milk along with leafy vegetables. It is again considered a bad, incompatible combination. And what I can tell is, you all may wonder the logic behind these, but from an Ayurvedic point of view, this can be explained very easily. So there is nothing that is mentioned in Ayurveda without a scientific rationale. The scientific rationale may not be with parameters, the metrics that we are familiar with, but uses its own metrics to explain why this should not be done. And the second one was antidotes. Indian cuisine is full of antidotes. You take any traditional cuisine. So for example, let's take halwa, wheat halwa. Wheat is the main ingredient, and wheat increases kapha. So it helps one put on weight. It's weight promoting. That is the property attribute of wheat. And when we take something that's prepared in wheat predominantly, especially if it is a halwa, we will have a go at it, right? Which means that we are likely to overeat it. So what do? So we cook it it's prepared in ghee, because ghee, contrary to the current day thinking, ghee does not increase the cholesterol. Ghee reduces kapha. So because it reduces kapha, which is the undesirable property of wheat when taken in excess, Cooking it in ghee will act as an antidote. We add elaichi to it, cardamom. The flavor is only a value-added addition there. The reason why cardamom is added is because it has a bitter taste, and bitter taste has the property of reducing kapha. We add saffron, again not for flavor, but for the taste it has. It is hot in potency, and something that is hot in potency reduces kapha. So you see how antidotes are inbuilt in the way a recipe is designed. So this is what is called food designing. So, you can break down all the traditional cuisines based on Ayurveda because they are based on Ayurveda. And so antidotes are there for everything. It's inbuilt into the cuisine. So all the spices that we add as ingredients, they are there for specific purpose, not for as a flavoring agent. That, as I said, is only a value-added addition there.
Thank you so much. There are a lot of questions still, so I think we should leave some of those for the next session as well. So I will just take maybe two more. Is there an experimental research? Is there any experimental research being done on Ayurvedic therapeutic diet from Dr. Sunita Chaudhary?
Ayurvedic therapeutic diet. I don't think. Some kinds of studies must be happening, but nothing has caught my attention. I should admit, because this is not an area that I am working in, and for this, we all have a very, very reductionistic, viewpoint of things. I'm only focused on what I am working. So there may be something that's happening, but I do not know whether it would be. Well, let me not comment on something that I do not know. But again, I go back to my earlier answer that, designing the research will be very, very tricky. For example, we still do not have instruments to measure the Ayurvedic metrics. And there is no point in measuring the modern metrics of nutrition, because it may give you some results, it may not. It may turn out to be redundant as far as Ayurveda is concerned. So this is something that has to be thought about, and what is called out-of-box thinking should be adopted to come up with a very research along these lines, if people think it should be done.
Thank you so much. I'll just ask one more last question about the importance of prasad and tirth that is given in temples. This is by Vijay Kumarji. And is there any logic in the pilgrimage sites that people reach by walking or trekking? So these are the questions that he has.
Well, as far as prasad is concerned, yes. Again, it can be explained, from an Ayurvedic point of view. Because what I would like to tell is that Ayurveda has, it's something that has pervaded. It is there at all levels. It has been incorporated into the thinking and the diet and other practices of the Indian society. And so everything has an Ayurvedic explanation. The prasad also will have. And as far as walking or trekking to the to pilgrimage, I do not know, but walking and trekking is anyway good physical activities, and I suppose it gives a sense of discipline and a focus, which is very, very important for mental health as well. It also gives a sense of purpose. So there could be a lot of psychological, health also involved in such activities. But more than that, I do not know. I know I cannot answer that question much better than this, or any better
So
than
much. Yeah, thank you so much, Ramaji, for very patiently answering questions. There are a lot more questions from the audience, and I'm sure if you continue answering, we will have a lot more. So we can save these for the next session.
Yeah, I
Yes.
have no problems answering. If you
Okay.
want me to answer, I can answer a few more. Absolutely no problem from my end, unless you all want to, kind of wind it down.
No, there's one more question from Mamta ji. She had asked previously about incompatible food. She also wanted to know about the shadras that the 6 tastes that we need to include in our daily diet. What is the importance of that according to Ayurveda?
See, each of these tastes is also connected with Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So a madhura, a sweet taste will increase Kapha. A pungent taste will increase Vata and Pitta. An astringent taste will increase Vata. So all the tastes are, connected, associated with Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, which again are, defined parameters, very tangible parameters that change in our system. So I will tell a very simple example. Let me explain this through a home remedy. So let's say that, we have cold, which is a very common problem. And cold is a symptom which occurs, which manifests when kapha increases. So kapha dosha is the major imbalance, during when there is cold. So the treatment will be to reduce kapha. So what are the tastes which increase kapha? Sweet, sour, and salt. These are tastes which increase kapha, they have to be avoided. And the taste which decrease kapha are hot or pungent, bitter, and astringent. Right? So we add tulasi leaves in our chai and take, because tulasi has a pungent taste. It has a exothermic property or a Ushnavirya which reduces kapha. An allopathic doctor will say that you take citrus fruits because it has vitamin C. Now it has been proven that vitamin C has got nothing to do with getting cold. But still the common advice is take oranges because it has vitamin C. Now Ayurveda will put a complete ban on citrus fruits during cold, because it is a double whammy, because it has not only sweet taste but also sour taste. So sweet taste increases kapha, sour taste also increases kapha. So we are going to run into problem by taking citrus fruits, because the taste associated with it will increase kapha. So there will be a complete ban on fruits during cold. So we can have hot soup because that reduces kapha. So, I can quote any number of examples for the utility of the rasas, in Ayurveda, be it home remedies, be it food, diet and nutrition, be it in preparing medicines. So rasa is one of the major Ayurvedic pharmacological parameters. Based on rasa, 80% of pharmacological action can be predicted from an Ayurvedic point of view.
That was a very interesting answer. There's one more question from Dr. Rao as to how do we consume rice bran according to Ayurveda?
Rice bran.
Bran, yes, rice bran.
So what exactly do you mean by rice bran?
I think Dr. Rao, if you could clarify what exactly the question is, that would be great.
Yes, namaste. The outer layer of rice, whether we like it or not, everybody is polishing the rice, and there is at least 15 to 20 million tons of rice bran is wasted with a lot of nutrients. If there is a way we can bring it back, it will be nice. That's the reason why I asked the question.
So it's basically the husk. See, Ayurveda, offhand, I'm not able to say whether Ayurveda talks about that in the husk in particular, but it definitely doesn't advise polishing the rice to a shine. So there are different kinds of rice as well that Ayurveda talks about, and there are certain rice which are cooked with the husk, and where the husks are also not very difficult to digest. So these are very, very specific cases, but Ayurveda does also talks about how to cook the rice and how to make the rice more digestible. So that's something that Ayurveda talks in great detail. But as far as husk is concerned, I'm not aware of what, or I'm not able to remember what exactly Ayurveda tells. Maybe in my next lecture, I will better answer.
I can wait.
Can I add something about it, rice bran?
Yeah.
Yeah. Namaste all. This is Dr. Rupali, and Ramaji, it's always a pleasure to listen to you, and the session was very enlightening. Regarding the rice bran, Ayurveda has mentioned the Vrihi Dhanya, and it also talks about Vrihi Dhanya cover, which is husk, to use for oil preparation. And Ayurveda has described like 7 to 8 types of bran oil. And recently, I have been writing a book, and it is I'm expecting it to publish very soon. And I have collected 7-8 types of bran oils with the reference of Ayurveda. So yes, rice bran does have mention in Ayurveda, and that time also it is used to compress and extract oil from it. And Charaka has mentioned about rice bran.
Thank you for that information. That was informative. Thank you.
Thank you so much for answering all of these questions very patiently, Ramaji. So with that, I think I would like to end the session and thank you formally for this wonderful talk. And this is a part of a series of 2 talks. We will have the second talk in August, as Ramaji has promised. We would like to hear a lot more from you. We are highly enriched from whatever we heard today. It was very enlightening. And yes, we are working, Ahar Kranti is also trying to bring back traditional thalis and the way of eating a wholesome diet instead of focusing on just calories and macronutrients, which loses the focus of something that is wholesome, that nourishes our body, soothes the mind. So we need to go back to all of these, and this is a wonderful beginning of what you have started. So we really look forward to the next talk, which will be about using food as medicine. So I hope whatever questions people have right now, we'll have to wait till August, till next month, till we hear about another wonderful session from you. So I'll just hand it over to Yeloji now.
Ramaji, once again, thank you very much. And just for the sake of audience, we have a team member in Ahara Kranti, Dr. Rupali Panse, and she's compiling some good items for Ayurveda and the nutrition related. The book title is Food Guru. It's going to come soon. Hope you will have a chance to look at it and understand it. That is now wonderful. Let us see once again.